You cannot force a being to awaken. It doesn't matter if it's your best friend, your mother, your sister, your beloved, your kid, whatever. You cannot force people to awaken. It is at their time. My answer always is to remember who you truly are. The you, the magnificent, infinite, indestructible you that is having a precious embodied experience. That is who you truly are.
Guy here. My beautiful guest today is Karen Chong. And I got to be honest, I love Karen. She is a ball of energy and yeah, a sweetheart. She's an energy healer, and I love the way she breaks things down for us today and talks very much about the energy body and how trauma and our lives can affect our spirit body, light body, energy body, however you want to call it. And by working with that, it also then has ripple effects and goes on to affect the physical matter within ourselves as well. Fascinating conversation. She speaks really quick, so keep up. But yeah, I loved her energy, loved this conversation, and I have no doubt you'll get a lot out of it today. If you are watching this somewhere in the world, on YouTube especially, drop us a comment below. Let us know where you are in the world. Keep connecting with me. I appreciate it as I continue to get these conversations and messages out there. And of course, our Bali retreat's going to be here before we know it. And if you want to come and join us for 6 days, a week, get away from all your distractions and place yourself in a incredible environment with incredible food and really set yourself up with these spiritual practices that I have so many conversations around where the rubber meets the road. Come and join us. I'd love to meet you in person. Anyway, that's from me. Enjoy this conversation with Karen, and I'll see you soon. Much love. Karen, welcome to the podcast all the way from exotic Mexico, I believe.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
So am I. I was listening to you talk yesterday, and I was like, wow, this is going to be a great conversation today as I was doing some research. And my first question to you is, which I love to kick off on the show, is that if you were traveling right now, you sat in an airplane next to a stranger and they asked you what you did for a living, how would you reply?
I would say that I help people to recognize who they truly are and to catalyze awakening by releasing unconscious blocks at frequency level. That's what I do.
And what is the general response to that?
So the response to that is either tell me more, or their eyes glaze over and nothing happens. Which I'm okay with.
Yeah. No, I relate. I'm curious as well, because I always get the sense, because I have the same challenges when people ask me, you know,
sure.
When moving in these terrains, and that word awakening, because
yeah,
so often as well, people come in, and when we're in the small self, the egoic self or whatever, we're awake. I don't need to awaken anymore. I'm already, my eyes are open, I'm conscious, and I know what I'm doing. So what does awakening look like to you? How would you define it?
Totally fantastic question, because it's so punted around as a term in the pseudo-spiritual communities. And everyone's like, that sounds amazing, but what the hell does that mean?
Exactly.
Or at least that was the question I had. So to me, awakening is not a point. It's a starting point into which there is an infinite journey. Okay, so I just want to state that, because a lot of people think that awakening is like, ding, I'm awake, even though I didn't even really know I was asleep, and now we're done. You can be, but there is an infinite potential for further awakening, because you're an infinite being. So to me, awakening means the point when you feel, not think, feel, know, however you wanted to describe it, that you are infinite, indestructible consciousness, meaning that you are far greater than your physical body. This part of you that is infinite and always has been and always will be, and that you are intrinsically and inexorably part of the one.
Beautiful. The next question, I'll dig into that a little bit more, because I'm curious of what are for many people that feels like almost a belief, not an experience, and there's things that we need to kind of, I guess, hang on to to
Mm-hmm.
wonder if there's truth in that. So
Mm-hmm.
how do you relate that to people? What are the ways in which people can start to experience that larger part of ourselves?
Yeah.
Even? Yeah.
So to me, the thing that keeps you from experiencing that part of yourself. So first of all, I'm going to back up. People already feel that part of themselves. They're just not aware that they are. Okay. So let's just imagine, like, you're a surfer. So just imagine you're sitting on the water and it's like one of those beautiful mornings, right? It's like super still. The waves are fantastic. The water's this unbelievably blue, and you're just in it, that flow of life. That's when you start to have that expansion into that wonder, into that, like, wow, life is freaking amazing, right? You are starting to experience yourself as what I call the big S self, or infinite indestructible consciousness. That is, you're experiencing both. Does that make sense? You're experiencing your humanness, the sensuality of the water, the sun against your skin, the smell of the salt in the air. That's all a very human experience. But that opening into that heart space of that expansion, of that, like, wonder of life, and like the immensity of it and all of that amazingness, that's when you start to have the beginnings of that experience of you as infinite indestructible consciousness having an embodied experience. So whether you do that when you're surfing, or whether you're standing under the stars and looking, in the country somewhere and looking at an expansive sky or a beautiful sunset, or, into playing with your puppy, it doesn't matter, right? There is the beginning of that experience. So I just want to say that, because I think a lot of people think of it as remote, like it's out there somewhere. I'm never going to attain it. How is that going to be me? You're already experiencing it. You don't realize that you are, but you are. So the thing that keeps us from having more of that experience, because to me, an intellectual understanding of that part of ourselves isn't awakening. That's your mind. That's your mind wanting to have an awakened experience, which is awesome, because often that's the thing that begins the journey, this desire to have that experience, but it's not the experience itself. So to me, to get to that experience, which has nothing to do with the mind, it's felt. You have these moments where somebody tells you something and something shifts, right? Like, you could know the thing intellectually, but someone tells you something and it lands and you're like, whoa, that's totally different in my being. It's the same way with the felt experience. It just feels true to you. So the thing that keeps us from having that experience is what I call distortions, or distortion patterns, which happen at frequency level. So what a distortion is, I think I need to back up a little bit. So if I may,
Please.
to me, everything is vibrating. This is not a news flash for most people, right? So for most quantum physicists out there, I mean, it's not new, right? Everything is light vibrating. And the rate of vibration dictates the form. Okay, so just like, for example, with water, if you have steam and it's vibrating very fast, right? That's what the molecules are doing. They're vibrating fast. They're steam. And when they slow down in vibration, they become liquid water. And when they slow down even more, they become ice, or solid, or density form. So if you extrapolate that to a much, much, much greater extent, you have pure source, the oneness, the field, whatever you want to call it, doesn't really matter. That very, very, very extremely highly vibrating consciousness from which everything comes and to which everything returns, which is vibrating at an extraordinarily high rate. So in order for the oneness to experience anything other than oneness, there must be a drop in vibrational level. When that drop happens, something called individuation happens, and something called frequencies start to, let's say, exist. When frequencies slow down in vibration, they become what we talk about as energy. And as they slow down even more, they become physical form or matter. And in the human experience, that's your body, your thoughts, your emotions. Okay. Everything is really vibration. Okay. So then what the hell is a distortion? So a distortion exists at spirit level or at frequency level, because contrary to what most people believe, things happen at the higher order of vibration first, and then the lower vibrating order reorganizes around that higher vibration. So when you choose to have an embodied experience, which I know can be sometimes hard for people to like imagine, especially if they're in suffering or if their life sucks right now or in the deep unknown. It's like, well, I sure as hell didn't choose this. But you did. And why did you choose it? You chose it because, you know, the scientists have said 99.99999999999% of everything is quote unquote nothing, which just means it doesn't have form. And 0.000000001% of things is form or matter. So you get to like experiment and play and experience form or density, which is a very rare and valuable thing, even though in our human experience, it can be painful sometimes. Okay. So when you choose to have an embodied experience, here you are as infinite indestructible consciousness. And in order to have the embodied experience, you have to drop in vibrational level, obviously, right? Because you're vibrating very high. An embodied experience is in density or form, which is lower in vibration. So here you are. So for me, from my perspective, what I perceive is like spheres of pure source energy. Okay, they come out of the field of the infinite and they drop in vibration into embodiment. So that sphere of pure source energy has its own unique rate of vibration. It's what individuates us. It makes you, you, and me. And so when it drops into embodiment, what looks like layers and 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 layers of duct tape form around the sphere. So just to be really clear, what
am I in a sphere right now? Is that like I'm just visualizing it?
Yes. So to answer your question, you are in a sphere. So we're going to go into a little bit of the deep end. If you want me to answer this, I can totally answer this. I can tell you, explain to you how the reality is constructed. Okay. So the sphere, okay, the sphere is around you. All right. So the sphere is what I call the spirit body. It's at arm's length all around you. It is the interface between you as consciousness and you as physical. Okay. So just bear with me for a second. So the sphere is what it does. Okay. So that exists on spirit level. It's of light and it projects into the center of itself a rendering that you call your physical body. Your brain is like the projector. Okay. So here's the sphere. You receive whatever you receive from it. Your brain interprets whatever it interprets, and then it projects your reality. Okay. Now, why did I talk about the sphere for a moment, and why is it important? Okay. So the sphere is a necessary structure because in order for you to experience form or density or the human experience at this consciousness level, you have to agree to two things. One is, well, it's a massive forgetting. It happens when you fall through the veil of forgetting. And that massive forgetting is that you're separate, that you're completely disconnected from the oneness. It's a massive forgetting. And the second is that you agree to something called linear time. So how do you have an experience that's collective when you think you're separate? You agree to something called linear time. So I'm going to back up again. There's two forms of time. Okay. There's linear time that I just talked about, and I'll get back to in a second. And there's something called that I call the eternal now. So everything happening all at once, right? This is what spirit level operates at. Everything happening all at once. It's all happening in the ever-present eternal now. Now, forever. But you, or all of us, not you personally, but all of us, with our brains, cannot possibly understand everything happening all at once. Like literally your brain will be like, eh! And then nothing would happen. You just feel like, oh my God, I can't even process that. But you as consciousness totally can, let's call it, understand it loosely or process it. Okay. So because you're having an embodied experience, you have to agree to something called linear time, which by the way, is a human construct. it's a way for us with our limited capacity with our minds, which are amazing. Okay. So I'm not denigrating the mind, but we can't process that much with it. I mean, it's great, but in comparison to consciousness, which is infinite, it's kind of limited. Okay. So your mind has to compress the eternal now. And so that's why we created linear time, so that we can understand it in the past, present, future, for our brains to be able to process it. Okay. And then we added something else called language on top of it, which is very inaccurate, but that's how we communicate. Make sense? So you have your spirit body in order to do a couple things. One is to render into form, and the second is to be in linear time. Now, why is linear time important? Like I said, it's how do you have a collective experience when you believe that you're separate? I mean, fundamentally, those two things are like contrary to each other. You have an agreement about time, meaning what's the 0 point of time? It's like, in the spy movies when they set their clocks or whatever to 0 because they're going to rob the safe at 0 hours or whatever the thingy is. I don't know. I'm doing a very bad analogy, but you know what I mean. We all have this agreement as humans. This is the 0. So that means that we have a unified or collective experience of time and of space. So, yeah, I don't know if I kind of went onto this huge tangent. Guy, you asked me a big question. I don't know if that was helpful.
Yeah, no, it is helpful. And because the way my brain works, and I love the analogy of the sphere and it almost the density then coming into the form. And I look at the energy centers as part of that integration of the sphere as well from that. But so my next question to you is then leaning into that, because I want to get into your own awakening journey soon, but we'll stay with this for a moment. And that is, how does then, because what I see so often as well is people go chasing the awakening, they go chasing the experience. And they obviously, it's a nice way of actually not having to deal with the shit in their lives that's currently happening.
Exactly.
And hoping that then having that experience, that connection to the divine or this all expansive moment is then just going to erase and fix all their problems. And there's going to be no lesson learned for our soul growth.
Agreed.
From the experiences we're having. So,
yeah.
So this is leading
Agreed.
into a question. Yeah. So then how do we start to encompass and take those experiences into our lives to make them tangibly affect the life we currently live in, that we've been avoiding, I guess the things that are coming up for us to transmute those things to live our life
totally
more present?
So I'm going to answer your question in a second. So do you remember when I was talking about distortion patterns? Right? And I was talking about how you come into the embodiment and there's layers and layers and layers and layers and layers of duct tape show up for you. And just to clarify, those layers are things like lineage patterns, meaning what your ancestors experienced. Definitely, if you look at the science of epigenetics, what they experience affects how your genes express, right? So science is catching up to spirit. Things like religious distortion patterns, even if you grew up without a religion, your ancestors certainly did. Cultural distortion patterns, past lives, all those things cause those layers of duct tape. So to get to your question, how do you take an awakening experience and have it be part of the you-ness that is you, as opposed to just like this wonderful fleeting thing that you remember that was kind of deep, but really didn't do anything? So the key is to those moments of awakening are meant to catalyze something, typically, right? They're not random. They're there to start something, typically. Growth of some kind, an exploration, a deepening of surrender, something like this. When you start to release your distortion patterns, okay, which requires work from my perspective at the frequency level and self-awareness, because you are having this journey, you have free will, and you're the one who's dictating your own awakening. No one else can. It's yours. So when you have these moments, if you're also releasing your distortion patterns, what happens, it can amplify into the beingness that's you, because you're becoming more and more clear that yourself. So meaning, okay, let's just take an example. Let's imagine that you're somebody who struggles with low self-worth And actually, I'll even tell you a story. It's even better. Okay. So one of our clients is a woman in her early 70s. Okay. And she's been in what Americans would call a traditional marriage, in the sense that because of her age, her role in her marriage was to take care of the house and the kids, and her husband was the earner. Because of her generation, that's what was considered to be typical. Okay. So she's never, ever, ever dealt with the money, because he's in charge of the money, right? He makes the money. He's in charge of it. She's always had to ask, which for her has been a hard thing in her journey, but she accepted it because that was part of her tradition and her generation. Okay. So she comes in to do frequency work, and she starts releasing a whole bunch of distortions around low self-worth, about feeling disempowered, about not having a voice, like a whole bunch of different things. Okay. What happens? All of a sudden, she's gaining greater and greater clarity, right? Her vibrational level is starting to speed up because the distortion patterns, which are heavy, are dropping away from her. So her vibrational level is rising. So she starts to have these moments for no quote unquote apparent reason, where she's walking along, she takes a morning walk, and all of a sudden she can feel things like the earth breathing with her. She has a sense of like everything being exactly as it should be. And then it goes back to normal. And she's like, wow, that's amazing. So she has this moment of clarity and beauty. But then she's like, but wait a minute. I'm not always having it. What is that showing me? Right? So things come up. She clears more patterns. Okay. We have a session one day, and she's now gotten to the point. I never tell people what to do. It's not my gig. It's yours, right? It's your journey. She's like, I've decided I'm going to leave him. I'm like, okay. And she's like, I'm a little afraid, but I'm going to do it, because if he like takes all the money, I don't have anything. And I'm like, we're just going to keep clearing your patterns. It's okay. Just keep on your path. Literally after this session that I have with her, the next day, she writes in to customer service, you'll never believe what happened. My husband is like a totally different human. I don't know what happened, but he said to me yesterday, I can't believe you've tolerated me for this many years. She's like, even that statement alone, like my brain was starting to melt. And then he said, I really feel, since we've just sold the house, that you should be the one who decides how we invest it. She was like, what just happened? Okay. So my point is, when you start to clear your distortion patterns, you rise in vibration. What does that allow you to do? It allows you to access higher vibrating possibilities in the field of what your life can look like. When that happens, more and more magic starts to happen because your vibration is rising. As your vibration rises, these moments of awakening sort of happen without you asking, but they're integrated with your experience. They help you to have this incredible appreciation for the brilliance of life, and even more importantly, perhaps, the brilliance of you and what it is that you get to co-create. And you start to recognize your authority and your power as co-creator, and things like freaking just start changing. So it's not like a one-off experience that happens and you're like, gee, that was amazing. It actually integrates into your experience, so it becomes a growth experience that is progressive and infinite. So that's what I would say.
Yeah, no, you certainly triggered many thoughts in me there, and many questions as well. So I'll just try and recap what you shared for myself
Okay,
and the listeners.
good luck.
So within these distortion patterns, which you call like layers of duct tape, and I love that analogy. Yeah. It's almost like muting the vibration. It's just,
yes,
yeah. We use the analogy because we have a giant gong, and when you hit it, it's like putting your hand on it, and life force wants to come through that, but it's constantly muted.
Yeah.
So the field is giving rise to physical form. And if
Mm-hmm.
the field is not vibrating in its true essence, because it's
Mm-hmm.
got duct tape on it,
Mm-hmm.
it's manifesting physical, but it's not manifesting in the way it should be expressing itself because of the misinformation from
Mm-hmm.
the frequency being held. Would that be a fair way of framing it?
Yeah. It's kind of like, imagine if you're looking through a camera lens, right? And you're looking, and there's like a whole bunch of filters in front of it, right? So if once you look through that lens, what you see at the end is distorted by those filters. Makes sense? Because you're looking through all the filters. But the thing is, as you start to release the distortion patterns or the filters, your experience of the reality becomes clearer because you don't have the same distortion. It's kind of like, if you can imagine, if you're kind of like in a foul mood, right? And you go into a room and you're like, this room sucks. It's too cold. The carpet's dirty. The sofa's not a great color, whatever. But if you're in a better mood, you would go into the same room and you're like, I really like that piece of art. That art's amazing, right? Do you understand? This is just a little example. It's like a filter of, that's just of emotion. Now, just imagine if you have a whole crap ton of filters of non-worthiness or scarcity or all of it. Now all of a sudden, what you're looking at life through is all this BS of all these filters. And because you see it, you create more of it because you believe it's true. That's the rub, man.
Yeah.
Sucks.
Yeah. That's where the rubber meets the road, right there.
Mm.
So another question for you then is, because when I had my awakening, I felt certainly a removal of the duct tapes, let's say,
Yeah.
But also what it did for me was, or what I started to understand, that it only gave me what I could cope with in that moment for allow my evolution to grow. Because part of me is like, well, why didn't we have these experiences? Just remove all the duct tape, so shine bright and just vibrate, float through the rest of my life.
Yeah.
Right.
Why?
So my question, so the question is, I guess, why? And is there that evolution allowing us to continue to learn from those things that we are bringing in this lifetime that might have been inherited from ancestors and experiences and so forth?
Exactly. So to answer your question, why? This is going to sound so trite, and I apologize in advance. Because you were here to learn. If you were here just to have like an instant awakening, it wouldn't have the same effect. You chose embodiment to transcend something really critical, which is asleepness. Like we didn't know how asleep we would become when we came to form. We didn't understand. We thought it would be like this really fun experiment, and it is, I guess, for a large part. It's also somewhat painful, but we didn't realize how dense this density was and how much we would forget and how asleep we would become. So part of the reason that the awakening is a journey is because as a human, you get to experience that growth viscerally. You get to experience like the triumph of it, the magnificence of it, the pain of it, the growth from it. All of that is very, very human and very intense sometimes, which is part of the amazingness of humans. Like if you're infinite indestructible consciousness without a form, it's pretty like not intense. You know what I mean? It's infinite, which is amazing. But like all of these emotions we have about fear of dying and fear of losing things and fear of like whatever the thing, I'm not saying it's pleasurable, but it causes us to have a very kind of intensive experience because we really believe it. And it also can catalyze tremendous growth. So if you can transcend the illusion and realize that the illusion is actually there for you to grow, to learn from, to be in, to marvel at, that it is part of your awakening that you're here to remember, then, I mean, that's part of the amazingness of all this is what I'm trying to say. So I feel like that's one reason. And the second reason is because for a lot of people, if they just went into brilliance, they literally would lose their minds. Now, You can do that if you really want to. Some people would not be ready for that huge jump in resonance, and their bodies would not be able to handle it. So they might go insane or they might die. The thing is that when you start to awaken and your own vibration rises, you start to experience more and more awesomeness because you are consciousness having an embodied experience. I know it sounds like a bumper sticker, but it's actually true. And what's amazing is that as your vibration rises, it catalyzes a ripple effect into the field because we are one. So that means because you exist as the possibility of a higher vibrating being, other people can do the same more quickly and more like effectively, really. You exist as that possibility in the field. So even though it feels like we're stumbling and we wish we would have instant awakening, in that stumbling, it's sort of like we rise at varying degrees of speed and, challenge. And every time you hit that roadblock and you transcend it, that not only is like a hooray for you personally on spirit level, but there's so many others who are transcending something similar who get to entrain to your possibility of that triumph so they can have that themselves in however it expresses through them. So it's really two things, I think.
Yeah, beautiful. And what do you feel our potential is then? If we're carrying all this crud and we're slowly freeing it, do you think there's a twofold thing happening? Do you think that's shifting us biologically as well to be able to
Yes.
kind of... Oh, yeah. So
Yes, I do.
How do you see it, please?
Yeah. So this is a huge question. I'm like, where to begin? Okay.
No small.
And then
no
more
small
importantly,
talk
where
here.
to end.
Yeah.
I'm sorry?
I said there's no small talk here. That's great.
I know. I love it. Okay. So from my perspective, and the work that I do, it's about clearing these distortion patterns, right? That cause you to have suffering in your life. Okay. That's like layer one. Let's just call it that for argument's sake. But then, and some people stop at layer one because they're just like, sweet, right? I came in because I really wanted intimate partnership, found my person, we're good. No more frequency work. Okay. It's good, which is great. Other people have that and they're like, wait a minute. So if that happened, what else is possible? Yes. And there's some people who actually know they want spiritual awakening, but for many people, it starts with something more mundane. So my feeling is, as consciousness, we are in a very pivotal time. It's been foretold for millennia. Okay. We're at a time, and the cycle's around every, 5,200 years or so, where there is the possibility that washes through the all that is for beings everywhere to ascend in consciousness. Okay. It doesn't just happen here on Earth, it happens everywhere. Okay. We are in that window. What does that mean? It means that we are being supported, not just us as humans, but everything everywhere is being supported by these very highly vibrating waves of frequencies to help awakening or ascension into a higher level of consciousness. Now, I know the word consciousness is batted around a lot. What I mean by consciousness level is a massive jump in vibration where the experience is very different because it's a much higher level of consciousness. So what does that mean? So in this consciousness level, it's very dense, right? We have oppression, greed, scarcity, fear, you name it. It kind of sucks, but there it is. Yes? At this consciousness level, it's very heavy. I mean, it's not a big secret, right? Like fear does not resonate high. It resonates pretty damn low. But when you have a jump in consciousness, you have to have cleared that stuff so that you can experience something different. In that higher level of consciousness, you start to experience freedom from that kind of density because it doesn't exist at that level of consciousness. It can't. And you start to feel oneness more, meaning that our experience isn't so much of separateness. It's a feeling, knowingness of oneness, which means that what I do to you and say to you matters because it's going to come back to me really quickly because we're one. So that shifts the decisions we make collectively, right? What we do with the earth, like everything changes when you start to recognize that we're intrinsically part of the one. So to answer your question, what can we do physically? So my feeling is as we enter this new consciousness level, we start to go what I call quantum. And that starts to be reflected in our physicalness. Okay? So meaning that in our DNA right now, for most of us, the way it works is that it is very limited and it's only partially being used. And there's only 2 strands of it. But etherically, there are 12 once you start to rise high enough in vibration. And once your DNA goes quantum, you start to physically be able to hold much higher degrees of frequency resonance, or what I call going quantum. So going quantum means that you not only are, well, it means many things and it's infinite. And I only know a part of it because of my own resonance. But it means that you start to have enough like vibrational momentum that you can experience higher levels of consciousness. You really start to feel and know that you create everything, the universes, the galaxies, etc. Now, why is that important in the DNA? Because there's so much information in our DNA that is locked to us. We really only think of it as like the strands of proteins or whatever they think it is. But in it contains all of this information, including the memory of who you are, truly limitless. Okay, so as held in the Akashic records. So meaning, and I'm not a big Akashic records person, okay, but I do know that there in the Akashic records, there is a memory of you without your distortion, without your, like this human distortion, like the layers of duct tape. That's truly your potential. You without the duct tape, that's your potential, which is infinite. So when your DNA starts to go quantum, that memory is in your cells. And they're starting to talk about this thing called cellular light. You know, like how much light do your cells emit? When we start to go quantum, the light field is like basically insane because your DNA becomes alive. It starts to spiral with the quantum field, which means like, I know this is going to sound totally bizarre potentially, but like the quantum sounds to our minds like a bunch of contradictions. Like, how can something be here and not here at the same time? You know, just like in that famous experiment where the observer is observing the subatomic particle, but when you take away the observer, the subatomic particle is not there, but when the observer is observing, the particle is there.
Double slit experiment. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. So when we start to go quantum, you can start to know here, not here, consciousness and embodiment, everything, everywhere, and the finite. These things all sound opposite, but in the quantum field, they exist simultaneously because we're now in the eternal now. So to answer your question, when your DNA does that, it becomes part of your embodied experience. And you start to feel finally this experience of consciousness really truly having an embodied experience. And my feeling is we'll get to the point, we're not quite there yet, where we can start to have more control over our rendering, meaning what our physical bodies look like and what they feel like, right? Because a lot of the suffering of humanity is we feel like we're separate and we're disempowered in relation to our bodies. But we're getting to the point, because it simply has to do with vibrational level. We're getting to the point in our vibration when we start to go quantum, where we can start to have more influence on the spirit body and how it is that we render. So things change dramatically on the physical when you start to marry the quantum and the physical together.
Love it. Truly, yeah. You know, I love the way you break things down and explain things, because these are the deep important aspects. Because even on my own journey, I even had a DNA specialist on here a couple of months back, and wanted to kind of lean into that because I felt in a visceral, like embodied experience over time, because I like hold space a lot for people now. There's been a muscle, there's been an activation, there's been a continuous growth that's happening, but also a continuous like of the clearings of the duct tape, if you like, which you know you have to go through it to come out the other side of it. You got to sit with it and be with it, right? So there's these waves of like, oh, here we go again, and
totally
allowing but the physical, it's what's blown me away is how the body starts to reorganize itself. Like we had a lady very recently having injections in her shoulder, and she released grief in just a one-day event, and the pain, she could move her arm and the pain was gone. And
totally.
You know, it's like,
I know.
Why is it?
I know. Isn't that amazing? And the thing is, like, similar things are happening with us, right? Where, okay, so 2 examples. One, we just gave a retreat here in San Miguel de Allende, and this woman had all this pain in her body, in her womb space, because she'd had a lot of sexual trauma. And this woman has done a lot of work. Okay, it's not like she just like arrived having done no work. Okay? She's done her own form of work, whatever, and she's gone through the trauma and felt it and released it, whatever. But she felt like something was keeping her stuck. Like there's always this memory of this trauma, and her focus has always been on the trauma. And she said after the retreat, she's like, literally, I would just put my attention on the space and it would dissolve. And I would check to see if it was there. And she's like, it wasn't there anymore. I'm like, exactly. And she's like, I don't understand. I've always had pain in this part of my body, and it literally is gone. And she's like, I'm actually crying as I'm writing this because I cannot believe this is happening. Or for example, in groups, this happens too, Guy, and I'm sure you're seeing this in your work. So we were in Peru, and there was, like 40 something of us on a bus traveling together, and we're in Peru. So people are getting sick with parasites. You know what happens when you travel internationally. It's like sort of inevitable. Okay, so we're at altitude. People are eating weird things. People have stuff going on in their stomach. Literally, this is like, I think what Dr. Mark Hyman calls the sociogenome. Literally, people were getting sick one night, the next morning recovering. Okay, and not because the mastermind vibration was so high, right? So their bodies would start to go into like distress, right? And then, but because the mastermind vibration was so high, they would clear that, what you just talked about, you go through all your stuff, you release the whatever and the whatnot, and it would clear. And then the next morning, they would be fine. They're like, I was totally sure that I was going to get flattened by X, Y, Z. Or they would do something, and this is not particularly delightful, but they'd purge really hard, right? So they'd vomit or they'd have diarrhea, right? Not pleasant for, I don't know, an hour or something. Next morning, fine. So my point simply is, you're right. The body can clear really quickly once we're vibrating high enough. And also, we have to release the distortion. There's this belief that we are powerless compared to our bodies, right? It's like we can't really, we're like subject to what the hell it does. We don't really have control over it, and we're victim to it. And I'm not belittling people's pain, because when you're in pain, it's really not a good time at all. But we're getting to the point, Guy, that I having the same experience with you as you are in terms of your clients, but where the body is adjusting in like very short periods of time for no quote unquote reason, right? They just don't symptomize. It's amazing.
Do you feel we are here, there's through these pains and challenges, that there is a lesson to learn, but once we kind of, as we go on the spiritual path and work with those frequencies, then we start to then transcend those, or there's a willing of acceptance, or there's a willing of surrender to that, to be more more present.
Yeah. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, no, that's fine. And just the add-on question is, and do you feel as long as we're here in physical form, then there's something to transcend and learn? And
so I'll answer it in reverse order. Absolutely.
Okay.
I think as long as you have physical form, you're going to have something called an ego mind, because you are human, and you will always have challenge, again, because you're human. reason for being here is to learn and to grow. So I know as humans, we would sometimes don't really like challenge because we're like, oh, that's hard. And it is. I'm not saying it is easy to have challenge, but in the transcending of the challenge, and then, as you say, going into that surrender, the deepening of that stillness within yourself, whatever it is that you learn, whatever you gain from it is priceless. So yes, I feel like we're always going to have that. And I just want to be, I don't know why I'm saying this, but whenever there's somebody who stands up, like a guru type or whatever, and they're like, I have no distortions, I am totally without ego. I'm like, really?
That's their ego saying it.
Exactly. I'm always like, big red flag. Anyway, so yes, we're going to have an ego. You are human. Anyway, and so your first question was, are these challenges and things just part of the process, and are we growing from them? Yes, absolutely. And I think, from my perspective anyway, Guy, to get to the point where you recognize that there's something to grow from is actually a rise in vibration. Because there are many people who are lower in resonance. Please know, this is not a better end. Okay. I'm not saying anyone's better than it. It just is. So people of a lower frequency resonance don't recognize it as a challenge from which to grow. They just think life is really hard and it's happening to me and it sucks, which it does, especially at that level of resonance when you're stuck in that ego mind perspective, which is very small, right? And it's like, it enforces that I am separate, I am not enough, I'm disempowered, right? So you're like spinning around in that heavy crap, right? Until you can release it. And then what happens through these series of challenges, through these series of awakenings, through the series of self-awareness and surrender and being with yourself, you start to rise in vibration. However you do that, whatever your path is. And then you get to the point where, as you say, you recognize it. It's like, okay, there's challenge here. What am I meant to learn? And I don't mean that in a pseudo-awakened way of like, I'm not dealing with my challenge. No, deal with the challenge. But really, you get to a point in your resonance, and I've seen this with my clients, literally it tips, where you get to a certain point of resonance where you're like, literally everything is for me. It's for me to learn from, right? It may not be like a freaking walk in the park, but I'm learning from this. And so there's kind of like, as you said at the very beginning somewhere, you're not given more than you can handle. This is your higher self helping you as the embodied you. You're not going to be like, okay, embodied you, let's just hammer you so you can't handle it. You know what I mean? That's not right. It's like, it's pacing, like it's all part of one, and it's all here for us to awaken with. I mean, this is like, people ask, what is the point of life? My answer always is to remember who you truly are. The you, the magnificent, infinite, indestructible you that is having a precious embodied experience. That is who you truly are.
Yeah, beautiful. You bring a smile to my face, because even after I was speaking about I had the awakening and everything, and I told you off air that I had a supplement company, and I quickly realized that I was very much in an egoic path and not like the true self path, and going across into that transition was terrifying, and all my old stuff would keep coming up and throwing itself at me and all the questions. So I actually went and had some t-shirts made that I would wear. Then I would start, and there's this one which I actually have on today. This is like 60 years.
It's totally true.
The universe. Yeah. And the other one was no pressure, no diamond. And I can't, and every time that old self would come up would be to really sit with it and be with it and slowly allow those frequencies to transcend. And my old mentor used to say to me, just keep asking the question, Guy, what is consciousness wanting to show you in this moment?
Yeah.
What aspects aren't you seeing of it?
Yeah.
And they were just critical components to support that change. Yeah.
Yeah. Beautiful.
I want to go on the bigger picture before we wrap this up. And
sure.
You spoke about, it's a very interesting time of humanity
Mhm.
you know, that's probably happening, like you said, beyond planet Earth as well. There's a shift in consciousness.
Mhm.
How do you view it right now? Or are you optimistic with what's going on, that this really is a clearing and we're going to see the evolution of humanity grow in our lifetime, and as people really embrace this work? Do you
Mhm.
think it's going to be in generations' time? I'm just curious. Do you ever ponder on these things?
Yeah. Okay. I'm going to answer that in a way that may not be popular. Okay.
Please.
Okay. You cannot force a being to awaken. One cannot. It doesn't matter if it's your best friend, your mother, your sister, your beloved, your kid, whatever. You cannot force people to awaken. It is at their time. Similarly, when this opportunity happens through the all that is, not all beings choose to ascend. They don't. We have free will. It's a very important, often not well used, but still there thing that we have. So for a number of people right now, the ascension process is like priority one. They can feel it, like something happened. Like for some people, they've been on the path for a while and they're like, whoa, I can feel the acceleration happening now. Some people, it was like yesterday something happened and they're like, whoa, something's got to change, right? Whatever the thing is, time, like how long you've been doing the thing, doesn't matter. It's about being in this window. And if you put up your hand to ascend in this time, you will. Will everyone? No, no, because they have free will. I mean, if you look around yourself, you will see choices that you're like, wow, okay, well, I wouldn't have chosen that, but that's the choice that's being made. So am I hopeful? I know that there is a rise in human consciousness happening. Absolutely 100% full stop. Will everyone who is a human on the planet ascend? No, because we have free will and we choose different things. Does that mean terrible things? No, because our like it's good, it's bad, whatever, it's a subjective human thing. Okay, so please know I'm not suggesting that like anyone's better or worse. It's simply a choice, right? I mean, you can see it around you. Some people are choosing to stay very asleep and are entrenching in their sleepness. Okay. And there are people who are waking up at like numbers that are unprecedented right now. Okay. So as we continue to clear, and as each of us who have chosen this path for ourselves that's unique to us, and we do the work that we do, we be the person that we are. Do I feel like more and more of us will awaken? Yes. Do I think it's all of us? No. Do I feel like what can happen as we start to embody higher levels of consciousness is spectacular? Absolutely. Because you start to recognize the magnificence of your life and the magnificence of you and the magnificence of everything. Maybe not 24/7, but you know it. And that to me is awesome.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you for sharing. You know, Karen, going to wrap up the podcast in a minute. It's really
Sure.
interesting that I didn't ask one question today on my sheet over here, which is, and this is my favorite way the podcast goes. Organic, just a wonderful conversation and everything you had to share. And we didn't even touch on your story today and your own challenges, which is, I know, but if you're open to it, I'd love to get you back on the podcast in the future.
Oh, I'd love to be back.
And,
thank you for inviting me again.
And explore those things, because I just love the way you're breaking things down and sharing them. And the last question I want to ask you for everyone is, with everything we've covered today, what would you like to leave the listeners to ponder on?
There is something critical that happens with humans, especially as they start to wake up, because they're curious and they want to know the mysteries. They want to know what's out there beyond themselves. And so what happens, I've seen this over and over again, is that people become addicted to giving away their power to people who they feel are more awake or know more or have more access to information or whatever. And they put themselves in a position of less than because they don't know yet. Please be aware that you will have your own path, and what is here for you to remember is here for you to remember. But please do not give away your power, because you are not less than. You're not less than anyone else. And there are a lot of people out there who are predatory and will take your power, and they will manipulate you. And please don't let them do that, because you are magnificent and you're really powerful. You just don't quite know it yet. So I'm not saying don't learn from people. Learn, but to really check with yourself. Just because someone says it, I don't care who the hell they are. Check with yourself. Does this resonate as true for me? As opposed to just being like, so-and-so said it. It must be true. Stand in your power. It's extraordinarily important for your awakening process, because so much of our humanness is in, I'm not worthy. I'm not enough. I can't. I'm not powerful. And to recognize, even in your discernment of like what feels true for you and what doesn't, is an important thing, because it's an honoring of who you are, of you, that part of you that is infinite and indestructible, that is helping you to have this human experience. To honor that, please don't diminish yourself. It's extremely important, not only for you as a human, but for the people around you and also in your own ascension process. So, yeah.
Amen to that. Absolutely. That's a perfect way to end it. Thank you so much, Karen.
Thank you, guys.
Where can I send people? We'll have a link in the show notes for your website and
Okay.
everything anyway to find out about more. But if you could say your URL loud.
Sure.
People, it might be
so you can find me at sphericalluminosity.com. We have our own podcast where I talk about everything from frequency perspective or spirit perspective, and like why things are there where they are. It's free. And at the end of every episode, I give a free group frequency calibration, which helps you to release the distortion of whatever the topic is that we were talking about. So you can find us on YouTube at Spherical Luminosity or sphericalluminosity.com.
Yeah, fantastic. Karen, thank you so much. I
Thank
thoroughly
you.
enjoyed the conversation today. And
Me too.
I have no doubt a lot of people will get a lot of benefit from this.
Well, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, my lovely.